Welcome to Washington Hospital Today, the program dedicated to sharing timely information about the community hospital that's been taking care of Washington Township Healthcare District residents since it opened in 1958. Washington Hospital Today is provided for the sole purpose of informing residents about healthcare topics and issues that have been covered during community forums, free health and wellness classes, or as part of educational sessions held during the district's open board meetings. This program is one more way that Washington Hospital helps empower you, the residents of the district, by providing information needed to make informed decisions about your health.
Today's presenter is Anna Mazzei. After receiving her Bachelor's of Science degree, Anna attended a dietetic internship at Mercy Hospital in San Diego. Anna started at Washington Hospital in 1986 as an inpatient dietitian. Currently, she is an outpatient dietitian providing education on diabetes and weight management and conducting community lectures. She is certified in weight management from the American Dietetic Association and has also been a certified diabetes educator for more than 10 years.
So rightfully so that you may be paying attention to weight loss, because when you look at the statistics, of course, 90 to 95% of the diabetic population is considered to be type 2 diabetic. In 2012, the statistics say that 86 million people have pre-diabetes. 85% of the people with diabetes are considered overweight. So it's extremely important that we address that issue across the country. So just 5 to 10% of your weight loss can right away start to improve your blood sugar, blood pressure, blood cholesterol. But let me address the issue with blood sugar is that when you lose the weight, it's just easier on your body. It's easier on your pancreas. The insulin that your pancreas produces is working more effectively. And so it doesn't have to struggle so hard to produce more and more insulin to control that blood sugar, okay? Many people who think of the word diet think of the word diet with just a T added at the end, right? Deprivation, structure, only vegetables, no fat in the diet. But the Latin definition for diet is a way of life. Okay, it's interesting to me that when I found this picture, they're all laying down eating. It seems so lazy, right? But I guess they used to do that back then. We don't know the rates of obesity back in the Roman times. But in any case, a diet is a way of life. Dietitians for years have been counseling patients on trying to make modifications in their environment so that they can easily choose healthy foods and manage their weights and choose carefully to support their weight loss efforts, okay? His name is Brian Wansink, okay? He's a professor at Cornell in the Economics and Management Department, and he runs a food psychology and consumer lab. So they do testing on products and to see what kinds of factors influence our eating, all right? But as mentioned, for years, dietitians have been encouraging patients to change their environment to support their efforts, okay? And he has really done many studies and collected quite a bit of data, good data on how certain environmental influences, our cues, influence our food choices. You know, it's not like our grandparents' time where, you didn't have that many food choices to make in the day. Unconsciously, we make about 200 different decisions about food every day, all right? And these are some of the influences that we have that lead to mindless eating. So clearly, family and friends, we just got done with the holidays. People are encouraging each other to eat all the time. Food is everywhere, right? What you may have not considered is the position of light on food. Who would have thought that that makes a difference? But their studies show little details like that. The shapes of food packages, obviously the way a food smells, but the distance from available foods. So he's done studies where they have secretaries with a candy bowl close to them and then 6 feet away from them, and the difference in how much they eat just because of the candy bowl being a few feet away. It makes that much of a difference for them. Okay, so that's just a short list. In this book, he goes through so many other factors that influence our eating. Mindless eating traps, convenience. As you know, food is everywhere. Years ago, you would go to a gas station to get gas and you're done. But no, now you can make a whole meal there for yourself. Now, food trucks have become very popular in the last few years, or even on the cooking shows. They're having competitions. Different lobbies of different buildings have food carts. Vending machines, of course, that's an old standard everywhere you go. And coffee has taken on a whole new meaning when people have coffee nowadays, right? We have the chain coffee places, and then there's individually owned coffee shops. You go to a museum, there's a coffee shop. You go into a bookstore, there's a coffee shop. And it's just not black coffee and Splenda, right? It's whole milk whipped up with some cream, maybe some chocolate, caramel, nuts. And don't forget, there's probably a pastry shop there or some other food to go with it. And even a copy and mail businesses, like you go to FedEx or Kinko's, when you're ready to hand over what you want them to copy, there's food right there. You just don't think about it because it's everywhere now. Even at hardware stores, right? This is, of course, when you go up to the hardware store, you might want a hot dog before you go in. Walking around the big hardware store might make you hungry, right? Then on your way out, you might still be hungry. And of course, then this is an ice cream container at the hardware store. Pick up a saw, get an ice cream cone, right? So who would have thought? Of course, most of the foods that are available are cheap, high-calorie foods that are not particularly dense in any nutrients that we need. Even though these don't look, it's like some of the typical candy and cookies you might see at checkout. They are just that, but have sort of look a little bit more expensive. But this is at a clothing store. This is from one of those stores where they sell clothing, shoes, you know, home goods, that type of thing. Because you could see like shoes, tennis shoes hanging there. But this is at checkouts where they sell clothing. I mean, I was at Macy's and trying on clothes, and they're selling Godiva chocolates and water at checkout there, okay? So anywhere they can get you to spend a little bit of money, right? And so to go along with nutrient poor choices are slurping our calories. That's a big mindless eating trap, right? So if you're drinking one or more sodas a day, you know, you're close to 30% more likely to be overweight. And soda accounts for close to 45% of the increase in calories over the last 30 years, right? So, but now sodas really are taking a back seat to some of these other drinks. I think the word is out, don't drink sodas, they've taken them out of schools. But hey, let's drink some juice because that's more nutritious. But look at those calories. These are all 12 ounce, right? So this is a 12-ounce drink getting up there close to 200 calories. And there's our coffee, right? Getting close to a meal now in terms of calories. Now, even if people have nutrition information for these things, which they may know, they do have that out there because those are chain kinds of places. Enter something new and different are these Asian drinks. Has anybody had something called boba tea or bubble tea? So what it is it's based water, sugar, and some kind of flavoring in there. They have a whole list of different flavorings you could put in there. And then they have these tapioca balls, and to suck them up, they have to give you a bigger straw. I think somebody's going to get lodged in their lung one day, and that'll be the end of these drinks. But almost 700 calories for one of these drinks. They do have lower calorie ones, but this is just wanted to show you how we've graduated from sodas, okay? So, and I noticed that a lot of kids hang out in these places. Kids and teenagers hang out in these, where they sell these drinks. There's chains, restaurants that sell these, and also individually owned. So this is, I think, a green tea one. All right, so slurping calories, and of course, appetizer overload. It's highly recommended not to go, now this is gonna sound, you know, ironic, but don't go to a restaurant, social events, or holiday dinners starved. Hunger is different than starved. When you're starved, the food is gonna seem much bigger and better than it ever has been. So the key thing is to go mildly hungry to these places because it's already a high-risk environment for you. So you want to get a small plate and fill it up because it'll look better. Okay, this is the same portion of food, but it looks a lot more satisfying in the small plate, right? Okay, and position yourself away from the appetizers or these free kinds of things that come with your meal. So if you go to a Mexican restaurant, you're getting the chips and the salsa, and they never seem to run out of the chips and the salsa. It just keeps coming, right? And then at the Italian restaurant, you have the bread with the vinegar and the oil. So just be aware of, these are typical things that you're going to find at a restaurant. This might be at a party. But get your small plate full and then remove yourself from the area and try to enjoy your food and drink and talk instead of hanging around that, buffet table. So again, mindless eating trap, appetizer overload, and many of those appetizers are fried too. All right, and then there's of course mega portions, mega servings that we have. So we know that many years ago, our portion sizes have grown tremendously over the years, from 5 cups of popcorn at the movies to 11 cups, okay? So this professor did a study where he had people come to a Chicago theater, a matinee. So a lot of these people had had lunch when they got there, and they told them, we're going to give you give you free popcorn and a soda. So they gave them either a medium-sized container of popcorn or a bucket size, the kind that fits on your head, right? Size popcorn. Now, the glitch here is that it was 5-day-old stale popcorn. Has anybody had like even popcorn that's been around for 24 hours? Okay, it starts to lose what we like about popcorn pretty quickly, right? Okay, so they told them that they're going to do a survey after the movie, and they asked the people, we gave some people a smaller container or a bigger container, and we know that from other studies that people eat more when they're given a bigger container, and people would respond that doesn't happen to me. I'm pretty aware of when I get full, or I'm not duped by those kinds of things, but that wasn't what played out, because when they weighed the popcorn, the people who got the larger containers ate more. And about 53% more, close to 200 calories more than the people who had the medium-sized container. And of course, they didn't eat it because it tasted good, right? I mean, 5-day-old stale popcorn, or because they were hungry. Some of these people had just eaten. During the show, they saw them kind of putting the container down, taking a few bites. They just couldn't leave it alone. But see, the cue there is that people eat popcorn at a theater. It's something that you're socialized with almost. Additionally, they're hearing and seeing other people with the popcorn. The size of the container was the cue. Seeing a movie that's distracting you is another cue. So again, it's all of those factors that play into how much we eat, what we eat, and how much we eat. All right? So this Professor Brian Wansink also was instrumental in encouraging the food industry to start preparing or making smaller 100-calorie bags of foods to help us control our portions. And so in his studies, he's found that for weight management, it helps about 70% of the people to have these kinds of prepackaged 100-calorie items. Some people might look at these as having a halo effect. The halo effect is because it's low fat or because it's a small portion, I get to eat more of it, okay? It kind of loses the whole intention of it. Now, some of these foods, of course, are not nutritious, right? You'll see a lot of these 100-calorie packs where it's just cookies or candy or cake. Even the popcorn which is more nutritious. You can eat a lot of it if it's not carefully, measured out. I've never seen this, but they even have the edamame, dry roasted nuts or beans. I'm glad that they have these 100-calorie packs of nuts, because nuts have become very popular, and they are nutritious. They do have healthy oil, but they can be very calorie dense, and people aren't careful about the handfuls that they're eating, and the calories can quickly add up. So a 100-calorie pack is probably, it's less than a quarter cup, okay, if you know what a quarter cup looks like. But it's not that much, but I'm glad that they are doing that now. Okay, let's go back to looking at what's happened over the years with our portions. Okay, the bagel of yesteryear, the bagel of today, everything's grown over the years. Okay, and so people are really attracted to the bigger size. That's why restaurants tend to offer large portions, because people want to get their money's worth. They're kind of afraid to offer smaller portions. So let's stay with me here we get used to these larger portions. Now, when we eat, we typically don't know how many calories we're eating. I mean, if you're not a dietitian, you may not know that, or somebody who's been on diets for many years. You don't really eat to get so many calories. You're eating because of what you've been seeing and how you feel when you eat. You're eating a volume of food that keeps you satisfied. Typically, people eat about the same volume of food that they're used to. And it's typically harder for people to estimate the calories than they eat compared to the portion. And in his studies, he found out that people who are overweight underestimate what they eat by about 40%. People who are of a healthy weight underestimate what they eat by about 20%, okay? if we could look like we're eating the same volume but not the same calories. So Barbara Rolls is a professor from Pennsylvania University, a professor of nutrition, published many books on volumetrics, where she gives you recipes and ideas to increase the volume of the food without increasing the calories to keep you more satisfied. Okay, so in one of her studies, people who ate a half-a-pound hamburger were tested. So they gave them a half-a-pound hamburger and they said they felt satisfied and full. And then when they gave them the quarter-pound hamburger, they said they did not feel as full. But then they did a study where they gave them the quarter-pound hamburger but made it look like the half-pound by adding more lettuce, tomato, onions, and not pressing down the bun. So visually it looked filling, and they said that they feel just as full. Okay? And then we had this other research that she did with a smoothie, where they had smoothies all made with the same amount, measured out all the same amount of bananas or strawberries or whatever they put in the smoothie. But one of them, they blended longer so the air was incorporated, so it looked like more. So when they gave this to people before lunch, the people who got the fuller glass ate 12% less of their lunch and said they felt fuller than the people who got the half a glass. But it was the same number of calories. And it looked like more, and the air might have helped them fill up a little bit more. So in volumetrics, what's happening there is that if you look at 3 servings of something, one might be very calorie dense, like just oil, but it's not going to be as filling as something that has a high water and fiber content. And that's what a lot of this volumetrics is based on. So it's going to weigh a lot in your gut, make you feel full and satisfied longer. So you can eat a lot of low-calorie foods and feel satisfied versus eating a few high-calorie foods. So another mindless eating trap is packaging and labels. Many packages look like they serve 1, but when you look at the container, it's going to say it serves 2 or 4. These are pint-sized containers of ice cream, and the serving size is a half a cup, and it's supposed to serve 4, right? So this is a clear way people, especially when you go get a sandwich. I've seen these racks of potato chips, and you just grab one, and you realize this is bigger than the one that comes in like the lunch packs for kids. You get the variety pack for kids. It's smaller. This one is bigger. Okay, so thankfully, they're going to start changing some of the labeling in the next couple of years, okay? So what they're going to do now is portion out foods based on what people actually eat and give you the serving size that people would actually eat, not what they should eat. Yeah, you should have a half a cup of ice cream, but the reality is that people typically will have a cup or more, really. Okay, so going back to this container here, right now it says it serves 4, but it's going to end up saying it serves 2. 1 cup, so that it serves 2 people, all right? They're also going to emphasize how many servings per container. So you'll realize right off that this doesn't just serve 2 people, it serves 8 in this case. And then the calories for the 1 serving, because all the nutrition information here is for the 1 serving described by the manufacturer. They're also going to have added sugars broken out. So you're going to have total carbohydrate, which includes all starch, sugar, that's naturally occurring, sugar that is added by the manufacturer, and fiber is going to be in that total carbohydrate. So you'll, as for people with diabetes, you will always need to look at total grams of carbohydrate. Okay, so the other thing is mindless eating trap is the grocery store. If you go to the grocery store hungry, without a list, you are you're going to fall victim to product placement and marketing strategies. It's easy to fall victim to that, especially when they're giving you samples, free samples, right? Now, we know the place that gives you the most free samples, right? But there's other places that are starting to do it, and it's a great strategy to sell products. And I think that it's worse if you go there hungry, because you might make a meal out of all those snacks, right? And then you can't even begin to count or if you're feeling full or not a lot of the time, and end up eating around and around, getting samples. Okay, at some of these grocery shopping, these when you get these large portions at these big box stores, okay, Costco, Walmart, Target, where you're buying large containers of products, they have found in his studies that people end up wasting more. Because you're buying so much, you start to lose track of how much you're using, and you end up wanting to use more of it. Quite frankly, if you're buying that many kinds of containers, it's probably taking up a lot of space in your house, and you kind of want to use it up. But I've even myself have done this with shampoo. If I get a large container of shampoo, I find myself feeling like I can use a lot, okay? So it ends up not really being bargain savings if you're going to be using a lot of it at one time. The key thing is to buy a large container, let's say of nuts, come home and prepackage it into smaller bags for yourself, okay? Now this is the number one thing for me about mindless eating traps is eating as a side activity. How many people do this? I think this is the worst, right? Is to eat while you're working, eat while you're on the computer reading your emails. You're not paying full attention to what you're doing. You're not really even enjoying the food because you're distracted, okay? And then, of course, kids get into this, right? Look at that big bowl of potato chips. I mean, somebody could easily eat that whole bowl. That's probably about 3 servings right there. So again, we're not paying attention to the food. We're not getting the full enjoyment out of the food because we're distracted by it. It's sort of a side activity. All right, so as a rule of thumb, the best thing to do is have one plate, as much as you can, have one place to eat your meal, all right? The kitchen, the cafeteria at work, not your desk, the nurse's lounge at the hospital or the faculty room. Keep it to one place, not at the desk. And this will help prevent the mindless eating, and you enjoy your food more by doing this too, all right? But this is a nice segue into something called mindfulness, okay? And mindfulness is, let me describe this first. Mindfulness is maintaining a moment by moment, if you can, awareness of how you're feeling, what your thoughts are, bodily sensations, your surrounding environment, paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judging them, okay? Now, this mindfulness was born out of Buddhist meditation, but a practice that came out of the Buddhist meditation, a non-religious or secular practice that came out of it, started at the University of Massachusetts with this professor, John Kabat-Zinn, okay? And he started in 1979 and it's just grown and grown and grown at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And there's thousands of articles, scientific articles, that have shown the psychological, physical, and social benefits of practicing mindfulness. So these are just a small list of them. It can boost your immune system. Naturally, it can help with your moods, depression, preventing the relapse of depression, coping skills, reducing stress. They've shown on different scans that it's changing the brain structure in the area where we learn, where we have memory and emotions and empathy, or that grows out of that area. And in this way, it's probably improving concentration. And what we're most concerned about is this mindfulness, is that it can encourage healthier eating habits, better relationship with food, and promotes weight loss. Because many people know what are healthy foods and what are unhealthy foods, but how do we consistently choose that? And a lot of the times it goes back to people's relationship with food, and again, being aware of these environmental influences that lead us to choosing incorrectly most of the time. This is what's called the mindful eating cycle, okay? And at the core of the mindful eating principles, what happens is that at the core principles of this mindful eating is trying to be aware of the nourishment and enjoyment that food gives us, really paying attention to that. And acknowledging food preferences that you and other people have without judgment, because then all that negative thinking comes into it. And one of the biggest things that I try to make a point of tonight is that mindless eating has distracted us from knowing when we actually feel hungry and when we should feel satisfied or full. I think that people, like I was saying, one of the things that we passed through tonight was about how portions have gotten larger, and we've gotten used to that. We've gotten used to seeing that and feeling that volume to judge if we feel satisfied. So looking through these slides and that handout I gave you on mindful eating, it's going to help you start to be aware of your environment and what's influencing you to eat. In terms of managing weight management, there are many aspects to managing weight. Some things work more for one person than another. And there's no one tool that's going to work for everybody. So I think there's a combination of things. People have to look at what they're eating. They do have to look at if they're eating nutritious foods. Of course, activity's a huge component. If you've got medical problems, you also have to consider that. But this mindful eating and mindfulness plays a role in being aware of triggers in our environment that get us to eat, right? So a little of this sprinkled throughout the day is going to make a difference day in and day out, just that increased awareness, okay? So looking at this mindful eating plate, we see here awareness at the top here, like a glass of milk. Tasting versus mindless munching, just hand-to-mouth munching, not paying attention to what you're doing. Other activities, we talked about that, distracting you from eating. And observing how you're feeling. Is your stomach rumbling? Are you stressed? Do you seek to be satisfied? She was talking about why we eat, looking at observing how you're feeling at the moment you start to eat. Savor the food. Think about where the food came from, how it's prepared, how it looks, how it smells. This all enhances that moment of eating. I think that the problem is that we keep eating because we don't get it right the first time. Really loving the time that we're eating, I think, will prevent us from eating more later on. The problem is time. People don't have time to do this. So I would suggest maybe, venturing out on the weekend because you might have more time. Just one meal, taking that 20 minutes to sit down and relax and eat it and see how it might be different from other meals you eat in the week. Okay? In the moment, be fully present. Turn off the TV, sit down when you eat and just eat. Just pay attention to the food. Most of us have not done this. It's a new experiment for you, okay? And non-judgment. Speak mindfully and compassionately. Notice when shoulds, rigid rules, or guilt pop into your mind for eating, okay? So you're not going to be enjoying the food totally if you feel guilty while you're eating, or you're, being a parent in your mind saying you shouldn't be eating this. You're going to have to walk 3 miles tomorrow because you ate this. You want to coach yourself. You want to be the coach in your mind. And she said, take a moment to think about why you're eating. Are you hungry? What is the reason that you're eating? If you're eating because you're stressed and you go and have a donut, you're still stressed, right? You're more stressed. So think about getting into that cycle. So I think this makes a lot of sense. Thank you for coming tonight.